Hi everyone, my name is Bran and I'm one of the members of the support team here at Nexudus. In today's webinar, we're going to be taking a look at the Sensors module and how you can use it effectively. This webinar will be more of a general overview of sensor functionality to give you a rough idea of what they can do. In the near future, we plan on releasing a few video guides that will explore some of the more technical processes involved in the sensors setup. This webinar will last around 15 to 20 minutes and we'll be taking questions throughout. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function on Zoom. If you'd like to access the recording of this webinar or any of our other webinars, you can find these at help.nexudus.com or via our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Nexudus. So what are sensors? Sensors allow you to capture environmental data in your workspace in real time. You can use sensors to trigger alerts when specific thresholds are met, keep your customers informed, or drive some of the processes taking place around your space. Getting the right sensors for your space. We won't go into too much detail on this as we're currently in the process of setting up new integrations to various platforms that use sensors, and the process will vary from platform to platform. But the way in which Nexudus uses the information from these sensors will remain the same. The sensors integrations will work in a similar way to some of the other available integrations in Nexudus. You choose a company that you wish to use for your sensors. They will allow you to purchase the physical sensors through them or advise on the type of sensors you should acquire. You then connect the physical sensors to the third-party platform and go through the required steps to integrate them with your Nexudus account and pull the data for each sensor to your admin panel. In the near future, we'll be releasing more documentation on these sensors integrations that will guide you through the process of connecting sensors to your admin panel. So don't worry if this sounds a bit complicated at the moment. Where to find sensors? For this webinar, we'll be taking a look at the sensors setup here at Nexudus HQ. Once the sensors have been connected to your admin panel, you will find them under Settings and Sensors. If you can't see this option, it may be hidden behind the Advanced Settings filter. Straight away, we can see a list of the current sensors in our office. In our office, most of our sensors are split between two types, presence detection and temperature. The temperature type of sensor will measure the temperature of a chosen room. If you look closer, you can see the current temperature shown for these two sensors. Presence detection is used to understand whether or not a certain area or seat is currently occupied. For example, you could put a sensor underneath all your hot desks to see live data on whether or not anyone is currently sitting at the desk. These are the main sensor types that we'll be looking at today, but there are a range of different sensor types available to you. This is not necessarily the final list, as there may be more added later, but it should give you an idea of the different sensors that you'll be able to use. Let's go through each of these sensor types to understand exactly how they can be used. The atmospheric pressure sensor can provide certain weather-related data. CO2, volatile organic compounds, and harmful particulates are also designed to measure certain aspects of air quality. This could be used to set up to measure dust or fumes in the air, for example. The power sensor can be clamped to a cable to measure energy consumption. This could potentially be used to charge customers for their exact power usage. The humidity and light sensors are pretty self-explanatory. The noise sensor can record the general background noise level. This could be useful if you wanted to implement quiet zones in your co-working space. Open/closed sensors can be attached, for example, to every window in your space to easily identify when any window has been left open. People counter sensors can measure the number of people in a specific room or area at a given time. The touch sensor can be simply used as a button. And the water sensor is used to measure potential leaks. For example, you could place this sensor under a fridge or freezer to alert a member of staff if water is detected. Something to note on these sensor types. Even when you may have a physical device or sensor that can measure different parameters like humidity and temperature, when this information is shown in Nexudus, each parameter will be represented by its own sensor record. This means that you may have several sensors in Nexudus for a single physical device if that device measures more than one parameter. To the right of the sensor records, you will see a section that shows a specific action that the sensor is set up to do. We'll investigate this a bit further shortly. You will also notice an option to add sensor. Generally, this is not an option you would need to use, as you would probably be more likely to integrate with a system that automatically adds sensors to Nexudus when created in their platform. But if you wanted to integrate your own sensor system without using a third-party service, this would be the way to do this. The data strategy option is also used for this. So if you're using this system, if you're using an integration to automatically pull the sensors into Nexudus, you don't really need to worry about this. If we scroll a bit further down, you'll see the available actions that can be taken through the sensors. These are the features that can make these sensors so useful, as you can control specific processes to trigger based on the information being measured. Sensors can be added to the system and left without any action. You would do this if you didn't want them to trigger any processes and purely be used for information. Before we dive deeper into each of these actions, let's have a quick look at the inventory section just below it. The inventory section is a way to link each sensor to a specific resource or floor plan unit. It's a necessary step for a few of the actions and also to tell the system which sensor is linked to which desk and/or resource. For example, if you place a presence detection sensor underneath a hot desk, you need to tell the system which floor plan unit is linked to that sensor. This means you can look at your floor plans and see which of your units are currently occupied. Similarly, you can also link a sensor to a booking resource. This data can drive certain actions that involve checking whether the booked resources are occupied. The inventory can also be used to trigger certain actions that are set up to perform a specific task to a customer. The system will understand which customer to choose based on the booking or the floor plan unit. For example, if you use the action to check customer in or out, and specified a specific resource and/or floor plan unit, the system would figure out which customer to check in based on either the booking assigned to the customer or the floor plan unit assigned to the customer's contract. As I mentioned previously, actions are features that can be triggered when information comes through to the sensors. Let's go through each of these actions and what you would use them for, and then we can take a look at an example action currently at work in our office. Send an email alert. This will send an email to a specific address of your choosing. This is a standard admin notification that cannot be edited, but it's unique to this action, so it will be clear when it's triggered. Update unit/desk availability and resource availability operate in exactly the same way, just that one is used for a specific floor plan unit and the other is used for a resource in general. Both these actions will provide information mainly used for reporting purposes that can be used to understand how many of your bookings go ahead without anyone turning up to them. For example, if you had a space that provides free hot desk bookings as part of a specific membership deal, and you had an issue with customers booking desks and not showing up, you could use this data to understand how often this was happening and also pinpoint specific offenders. Update booking occupancy. This can be used to update the capacity of a booking. So let's say you had a meeting room that is set to allow a capacity of 10 people. You could use this function to record the amount of people in the room at the time of the booking. This data can also be looked at historically, so you'd be able to produce a report that shows all your previous bookings for specific resources and the percentage occupancy for each booking based on the sensor data compared with the capacity data. This type of data can be quite powerful, as it shows you how efficient certain meeting rooms are based on the capacity. For example, you could identify that you have a 6-person meeting room that rarely has an occupancy of more than 3 people. With this knowledge, you could split this room into 2 meeting rooms to maximize the overall capacity for your customers. As well as being used for reporting purposes, the booking occupancy data can also be shown in real time on your floor plans. If we take a look at the floor plans in our office, we can see which desks are booked. We can see which desks are booked and also which of the desks are currently occupied. You can also use the sensor occupancy toggle to switch between displaying occupancy based on bookings or occupancy based on the sensors. Send alert to customer. This action will send an email to the customer via message macros. You create a message macro that you wish to use and select it when enabling the action. For instance, you could send an alert to a specific customer based on the temperature. If the temperature drops below X degrees in this meeting room, alert the customer linked to the booking. Start a booking. This is linked to the booking setting that requires customers to check into their bookings and to cancel the bookings if they fail to do so. This option can be found in Settings and Booking and Calendar Settings, and it's this option here, Require Attendees to Check In. You can use this option with an occupancy sensor to automatically check customers into their bookings when they turn up. This would be a useful feature if you had an issue with customers not turning up to their bookings. Perhaps you do not want to penalize them for failing to show up, but you want to cancel the booking to make sure the slot is free for another customer to book. Terminate a booking is the opposite. This would be used to end a booking early. So if you had customers that book a desk for 8 hours and leave after 4, you may want to cut the booking short to free up the slot for someone else. Using a presence detection sensor, you could do this with this action. If the system records that the customer is not sitting at that desk for a certain amount of time, it can end the booking early. Check customer in or out. This is similar to the booking check-in option, but will check the customer into the space and not specifically to a booking. So this option will identify the customer based on the booking or floor plan unit. When the sensor picks up that a person in this area, the system will check them in the space. Also, this action can be used without a booking. The system can identify the customer based on the floor plan unit connected to their contract and check them in. We can actually see this process in action in our Nexudus office. We have sensors set up under each desk in our office. These sensors are all linked to individual floor plan units that are linked to resources. So when we sit at a desk, the system understands to check us in based on the customer assigned to the booking. Make HTTP request. This is used to send the sensor data somewhere else. For instance, this could be used with an API tool such as Zapier, where you would paste in a URL designed to receive data from the sensor. This can get fairly technical, but theoretically you could connect this to a heating system to increase the temperature when it drops below a certain number. If we jump back into our admin panel and we have a look at a sensor, you will also see an option called trigger function. The trigger function is a way to tell the system when the action should be triggered. It works kind of like a filter. So if you didn't want the action to run straight away, you could use this to process the action only when certain conditions are met. For example, you could use the trigger function field to control alerts being sent at specific temperatures. This would be useful to notify an admin when a room hits a certain temperature. Understanding the language of this code can be quite complex as it requires a certain level of technical knowledge, but if you needed any help with setting this up, you can reach out to us at support@nexudus.com and we'll be able to help you with it. Adding sensors to the dashboard. Another option you may find useful is to add the sensors to custom dashboards that you can create on the admin panel homepage. If we take a look at the homepage in our office, we can see some examples of sensor data that we have added under a dashboard called Environment. Here we can see some data on temperatures and the occupancy of specific areas in our office. Let's have a look at one of these dashboards for sensor data. If we click Add, and we'll name this Sensors, for instance, We can then click Add Card, Sensors, and we can select all of the options that we wish to include in this dashboard. Once added, these can be moved around and resized as you wish. As well as this, you can also add individual sensors, or you can select an option here to combine all the sensors. And when you combine all the sensors, it will show something like this, where it will show you a percentage occupancy of all of the sensors that you selected. Using sensors with Nexudus Explore. The data produced from your sensors can also be used in Nexudus Explore. For those who don't already know, Nexudus Explore is a reporting tool that lets you build your own custom reports to make more data-driven decisions. To access Nexudus Explore, we need to navigate to Analytics and Nexudus Explore. Let's take a look at a few examples of reports we have built around the sensor data in our office. Here we can see a report that we created on temperature. As a graph, this shows, based on the sensor data, this shows what the current temperature of our office was based on the sensors at any given time. We also have another sensor for the CO2 levels in our office, as well as a max temperature and minimum temperature. If we open a new measure and type in sensors, here you can see all of the different measure data that we have that you can use with your sensors. We will be expanding the Nexudus Explore options for sensors as we update the functionality further, so this may not be the final options for how this will work. Hopefully this has given you an understanding of sensors and how useful they can be in a co-working or flexible workspace. We'll be keeping the webinar open for another 5 to 10 minutes or so to answer any questions you might still have. Thank you for taking the time to take part in this webinar today, and I wish you all the best of luck with your sensors.